Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. Welcome to our Friday News Week News Roundup and Chat, live chat. Please feel free to join us in the chat room on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on our flagship station, Rumble. Thanks for being with us, and let's go. And once again, it's great to have you with us, Marcia Keith. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for having me here, John.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, well, we've been busy this week. I mean, you and I just personally, and I've had a number of fascinating shows this week. I really enjoy it always when we get to talk together about the JFK killing, and then also to work on just telling this story. I got to do I guess I could have called it a minefields, but it's a little new series I'm doing called Meet the Harrimans,
Yes.
and we started with some amazing quotes from Anton Chaikin's book Treason in America, a book that I just I did 4 shows on treason in America about 3 years ago, and at that time, Tony Anton Chaikin, who I call Tony because he's a friend now,
Hmm.
published Who We Are, his first volume, and I got in touch with him, and he said, "Absolutely, read the book on your show." So I did, and I just feel like what we can do here is to help spread the word that real American history is accessible. You just have to find it, and people like Anton Chaikin are the sources that we can go to. It's wonderful to have him working, and he's on volume 3 of that same book now, trying to publish it early next year, I hope. But Treason in America talks about the relationship between Averell Harriman and John Foster Dulles and Allen Dulles in a way that ties together things that I had not had connected in my mind before. And that is the fact that these are the deep state Democrats with Harriman and the deep state Republicans with Dulles in partnership.
Yeah.
And that alone, I think, is worth a lot more study. So, well, I'm just delighted to let you know that Anton Chaikin will join me next Thursday here
Oh,
on
that's going to be
McDuff
great.
Lives at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to discuss that very subject. So make sure and make plans to join us then. Um, well, I see our friend Paula de Boer is here. She from the Netherlands, and welcome. Thank you for joining us, Paula.
Hello, Paula. I was about to say good morning, but it's not morning in the Netherlands. It's afternoon by now. What is it, 5, 6 hours? So, hello, Paula. Thank you for joining us.
And I thought, in terms of just my own idea of what was the biggest news story of the week, it's one that I don't think most people would think of, but perhaps Paula, you being a European, might have the same idea that when the French stopped and inspected a Russian uh, oil tanker, a shadow fleet, they call it. So it's not flagged Russian, but it's Russian oil going along the coast of France, stopping it, basically setting up a confrontation on the high seas that could easily get ugly. The French did let the ship continue, but not until after stopping it and investigating what it was doing, interrogating the crew, and that kind of stop and frisk thing on the high seas could lead to Russia being very pissed off. So Putin was very pissed off, and it's an escalation along with Zelensky's very threatening language about getting American Tomahawk missiles and using them to shoot any part of Russia he wants to, telling the Russians to the Russian leadership to make sure they know where the bomb shelters are in Moscow. So this escalation, I think, for me, is the number one story of the week. I wonder how folks in the chat room are ranking that, or what over in Europe, from your point of view, Paula, would you say is the big story for the week?
Yeah,
And,
that's not one. This naval issue is not one that I had come across. So I'm glad that you mentioned it. I am going to share David's comment here before we get too much further along. That Harriman marrying Winston Churchill's daughter-in-law and her role is fascinating. We heard her assistant speak in Nashville Antique and Garden Show. Pamela Churchill Harriman. That sounds very interesting. Look forward to learning more about that.
well, David, you're going to be with me on Tuesday.
So you guys can talk about that.
Well, what I was going to propose to David is that we make this part 2 of Meet the Harrimans, and you can tell the Pamela Churchill story, and so much to talk about.
That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
David.
really want everybody to benefit from David's amazing connections that he can make. So hopefully we can do that if you don't mind, David. Kind of concentrate on the Harrimans for one of our remember we did Meet the Bronfmans and
That's right.
Meet the Angletons.
I remember that.
So that's what we're doing. Meet the Harrimans next week.
Paula says it seems the EU leaders are eager to provoke Russia and get the war going. Yes, I keep reading about the drones. I think the most recent one was in Munich.
Oh, they had a drone in Munich?
Yeah, they had to shut down the airport because of drones in Munich.
This is so suspicious, is it not?
Yes, indeed.
And these, especially in the Baltic countries. And with the whole problem of that little bit of Russia called Kaliningrad being isolated from Russia, but stuck between the Baltic countries and Poland, I think. Yeah, Poland. So that's a flashpoint that could happen at any time. Who knows who's really responsible for the drones, but the Western press is delighted to blame Russia.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thermobsterful says, very sus.
Yeah, this is Mobster. He's one of our longtime followers, and it's great to have you with us, Mobster.
Well, for me, I think the big story is the government shutdown.
Tell us more.
Well, the government has shut down from time to time, but I think that we're in a very different situation now. And of course, with the president threatening to do some firing during this shutdown, it makes it all very different because there are people who could be cut. And, all of this cutting, I can't say I'm unhappy about it. I feel bad for people losing their jobs. Of course, you and I know that feeling. Many, many people know that feeling, but that is the fact. Many people do know the feeling because not shutdowns, but layoffs happen, and they happen in the public sector and they happen in the private sector. And it's always very hard when it happens, but let's face it, government is very, very bloated. We talked about this last week. But I still think that the short-term ramifications of the government shutdown and any subsequent layoffs or firings or whatever you want to call it is going to have some short-term consequences that are going to be difficult, especially on local economies. Our Washington, D.C. economy, we feel it here. When I was working and dealing with local businesses, and local businesses always struggle during shutdowns because federal employees stop spending. So it does have an impact that is direct and indirect and induced, because spending stops, and so businesses start hurting, and then the businesses stop buying inventory, and it's a domino effect that happens. So I think in terms of the economy, the shutdown is problematic. I think that in terms of the firings or potential firings and any court cases that might come along as the result of that, or other fights that might come along because of that, I think are going to be complicating issues for a while. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this shutdown. I think the Democrats are being stupid because in some ways, the Democrats are proving, by allowing the shutdown to happen, they're proving that, and they're opening the door for Trump. Number one, they're opening the door for him to say, see, we can manage without all of these people. And therefore, there's no reason to keep all of these people on.
I was sorry to see that he has called in the analysts from Project 2025, which is actually the Heritage Foundation's project, and not the Maha Group's project, but it was something that was a big deal to the Democrats, saying, look at this horrible 2025 project. Trump's going to do this. Trump's going to do this. Well, I thought he wasn't going to do it, but he says now he's bringing in Project 2025 analysts to determine which of the federal programs are Democrat programs, are political programs that are just there to help the Democrats win office. And I thought, well, on that small point, maybe sure, but I don't like the idea of them. Because I do not like the Heritage Foundation. I think that whole that's just another cover for the deep state and the elite, maybe just reaching in from the far right as opposed from the far left. But it's the same people.
Well, and during the election, the Heritage Foundation was often quoted as their 2025 report being Trump's platform, and Trump denied any ties to it. So now, if he's going to follow that, it kind of says, yeah, it was his platform.
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I don't understand this comment, Corky. I learned 24 million U.S. government, I'm assuming that's what USG means, jobs, 154 million all non-USG jobs.
Oh, that must mean how many jobs in the whole nation?
24 million? Last week, didn't we determine it was 2 million? That's what I don't understand.
All right.
1 million job cut is the current scenario. So I'm not quite understanding these numbers, but because what is the population of the United States? The population of the United States is
350, I think.
Yeah, somewhere. Corky says ratio.
Corky says, okay, Grok was wrong. Well, I agree. Grok is almost always wrong whenever I ask it anything.
That's funny.
It is. It's sad, really.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they're good at things like calculations and reading things to you. Like if you need to know, something about biology that, and they're very fast at things like history.
But data, like the number of people who work in certain industries, that's so easily available from the U.S. Census. You would think that Grok would be able to do that fairly easily.
Well, I want to move on to the one position that Trump is trying to control, and that is the seat on the Federal Reserve. I forget the lady's name.
Lisa Cook?
Lisa Cook, okay, is one of the commissioners, and he is trying to get rid of her.
Mm-hmm.
And the wedge he's found is that she had some fishy
mortgage application.
Yeah. And they're going to try to get rid of her on that basis. But look at the bigger picture here. This is one of the hugest themes of McDuff Lives is, does the government control the economy, or does the economy control the government? And if the Federal Reserve cannot be fired by the president, then it looks like the economy controls the government. And that's what we don't want. As citizens trying to have a government of we the people.
Well, you know what, though? The economy is the public and private sector. So I think I agree with what you're saying. It's a little bit of semantics that I'm struggling with here because I think it's not the economy, it's
It's the banks.
yeah, well, yeah, but
It's the
it's
Fed.
the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the private sector controls the economy, and I'm okay with that. But the public sector regulates the economy. And there is a difference. But I don't know. I still don't quite get why Trump is trying to fire this woman other than the fact that she's a black woman and he's going
It's
to.
because he wants to control the Fed.
Right.
And I think he should be able to control the Fed because he's the president. And the Fed is, if it's not controlled by the president, if it's not controlled by Congress, if it's not controlled by the Supreme Court, then it's a fourth branch of government that's not in the Constitution.
And I agree with that. It makes a lot of sense. Though I don't trust this president to act objectively. You know,
Okay.
he has a very clear agenda that has to do with anything that he perceives as liberal woke policies. And he tends to act accordingly when it is not really consistent with well, when it's not consistent with the issue at hand.
I think that what we're missing here is the overall fight over what the interest rates are. And Trump wants Powell to reduce the interest rates. Powell is resisting that because it's inflationary to reduce the interest rates. But Trump has his idea of this is what we need. We need lower interest rates. And I, as a consumer, kind of agree. I'd rather have lower interest rates right now. So everybody could borrow some money and do something productive with it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to debate interest rates and what should and shouldn't happen because it's way over my head.
And that's the argument for letting the Fed run it because they're the experts. But the experts are the ones that work for the big money that always wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what David Underdown has got on his next post here.
All right. He says, Heritage Foundation and IP3 Middle East Marshall Plan crossover son-in-law is making deals bringing rivals together and dusting off Tony Blair and the Labor Party. Fabian rebrand.
All right, let's see if we can break this down. The Heritage Foundation rings a bell. Okay, IP3, David, I forgot what it is. I remember that it was something, but I forgot what it is. Could you please refresh us on that? And the Middle East Marshall Plan crossover son-in-law. Now, please tell us who that is. And bringing rivals together, dusting off Tony
Are we
Blair.
talking about Trump's son-in-law?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I bet you. Okay, let's continue with David's post and see.
You mean the next one?
Yeah, I've lost it. Go ahead.
Okay. If she used an Obama phone, Heritage Action has got your unjust enrichment on the promised database. I'm very lost on that.
Yeah, that's too much obscurity, and I don't have a handle on what you're saying, Dave.
Yeah, hopefully later get an explanation. Brightmore says Trump's current mission is to prevent the Democrat-sponsored tumult that characterized and undermined his first presidency. That makes sense?
Yeah. I guess another thing we haven't touched on yet is this militarization of the fight against Antifa and calling Portland a war zone, and then on top of that, calling the narco the narco people
Military combatants.
yeah
Yeah.
military combatants. So that that is really an exertion of presidential power that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but there are statutes that authorize it. I was reading some of them yesterday, and it does look like at some point Congress has authorized the president to do exactly what he's doing.
Mobster says the fact that she doesn't resign tells a story. Yeah, I'm not sure I would resign in her case, in her place. And the fact that she doesn't resign, I think, suggests that she isn't guilty of what she's being accused of. But the Supreme Court says they'll hear it in January. So we'll find out more in January. But she's, I guess, safe until then.
Okay.
David says IP3 was rival to Iran nuke deal. Mike Flynn on phone. Ed Meese was Heritage Foundation chief and was Brian Earl Bob Maxwell partner in Promise Software.
A lot of good information that I wish I had the brain to put it together all at once.
Yep. Brightmore says Tony Blair Institute for Global Change has partnered with Oracle's Larry Ellison, Trump's new watchdog on TikTok. Ellison has said that mass surveillance will keep citizens on their best behavior.
That is a famous quote, and it needs to be going around. This is another example, Marcia, of things that we see on X that the people on the left never see. And I wish that we could just get them to look and see. Look at this Larry Ellison. Look at the connection between him and the ADL. Look at the connection between that and Netanyahu's Gaza policy, and look at this genocide. But more important to America, look at the surveillance state. Look at the Promise software. Look at how they've doxed everybody. And you are completely found, fixed, and ready to be finished at any time, as long as we have this techno state that's. I mean, everybody, all the citizens are like, sitting back and waiting for it to happen. But there's, there will come a time when you cannot do anything that's not authorized by your digital twin that will talk to you in your head and tell you, don't do that, John.
As Brightmore says, keep us on our best behavior.
Right.
Corky asks the question, was Hegseth's big meeting an empty flex or genius or what?
That's a good question.
It is a good question. I don't think it was genius. I don't think it was much of anything. Actually, I think it was a lot of hoo-ha for just some, what's the word, positioning. I think that the United States has a very strong military. To call in all of these generals and admirals and big cheeses to say, we're going to have the best military in the world. We do. I don't see that this has really resulted in any kind of new thinking among people. In fact, when I've tried to talk to people about it, it was like, okay, it didn't mean anything. I don't know.
I think it's good to remember people like General Mark Milley, who were completely out against Trump, and the military that went along with J6 Pelosi's routine. There's parts of the military that might have needed a talking to. That wouldn't have been reported in the press. And then also, of course, look at what we're doing. We're sending the military in to straighten up our cities. We're going to be knocking heads. We're going to be doing some violent stuff in order to take back, power away from these threatening groups like Antifa that sit outside the ICE headquarters trying to hurt people. Yeah.
Turning the military against the citizens. Paula says the Britons, Tony Blair's obsession, are trying to make the CBDC, one banking chip, mandatory. Without it, no money, no job.
It's what it says.
Yep.
Yeah. I see that. I have a number of people from Great Britain that I watch on X, and yeah, again, these things are of extreme importance to the public. But somehow, well, we know how the mass media is controlled, so that 99% of the people will never really understand, But I did hear, I think it was Keir Starmer say that we need the digital ID in order to control immigration.
Right.
And that's such BS, I mean, it's like they had to think up some reason to impose the digital ID. Because they want to control the currency. They want to control how much money is available generally, and then also for social control. But I think more important than social control is just control of the money supply itself, and trying to keep enough money in the country to run the big budget that they have and the increasing military budget that they're taking on. It's all schemed to, keep their power and get more money out of us.
There you go. That pretty much sums it up. Keep their power and get more money out of us. Brightmore says RFK Jr. has launched an FDA review of the abortion pill, mifepristone. I don't know if I said that right. I never know how to say these drug names. I had not heard a review of the pill. What I heard was that an abortion drug has been approved. Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. David Underdown says Larry Ellison Oracle was originally a CIA database in Silicon Valley, next to when Ed Meese was leader of Reagan's kitchen cabinet from California. Not sure what it is Corky got, but and then of course, yes, Greta Thunberg was detained by IDF on her flotilla with aid bound for Gaza. Yeah, along with about 40 other people who were all trying to get aid to the Palestinians who are starving and desperately in need of a lot of things, medicine, food, all kinds of things. And think what you will of Greta, trying to get help to these Palestinians, I think is extremely important and very, very sad that these efforts are being thwarted.
You know what? That should have been the story of the week.
Yeah.
And it's, the fact that I didn't think of it means, I think it signifies that it's just not gotten a lot of coverage.
Right.
I've had to hunt for coverage of it. And, yesterday, I think there was the IDF stopped and detained them, but I don't know what's going on from there. I mean, imagine the IDF could just say, okay, well, thanks for all the stuff. We'll take it and give it to the Palestinians for you. So you guys are done. Goodbye.
Well, if they would give it to the Palestinians, that would be lovely, but they won't.
Well, yeah, but how do you know that?
You're right. Absolutely. That's so naive of me.
Yeah.
Did we close the door?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Corky says, any one thing for everyone, i.e. jab, is not ever going to be efficacious. And that is such a good point. There isn't one solution for everyone.
If everybody has a digital ID.
Oh, did I just take that down? Sorry.
Here we go. Same point. Britain's new digital ID will absolutely collect biometric data. UK is striving to unify UK data into a global database. Yeah. That's, I guess, part of the Human Genome Project and everything.
Okay. All right. We'll just let them bark.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, but they don't sound like they're where they should be.
I know. All right. I'm going to go look.
No, you talk.
Okay.
I'll go.
We're going to send Marcia on a mission.
Oh, except that my I'm going to turn my camera off first because there you go.
All right.
My camera gets unhappy when I leave its orbit.
Okay. Corky says at 81, Ellison is on something, quote unquote. I didn't know he was 81. My goodness. Of course, I'll be 73 in a week or two. You know, I'm still going strong. Brightmore says Kash Patel severed ties with ADL, supposedly over links to Comey. When will the DOJ indict Brennan? Well, I think it's also over the Charlie Kirk thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was right after Charlie Kirk, and I can't say whether Israel was involved, but his turn against Israel not long before what happened is, well, it's an interesting coincidence.
Interesting.
At any rate, this whole thing with Kash Patel and Bongino saying, "Oh no, there's no Jeffrey Epstein files." We've already, they look like they're lying. They look like they're lying. That is one huge thing that if the Democrats and the Republicans could get together and achieve a majority in Congress to really dig and find and get out all of this stuff, then all the other stuff that we talk about would be exposed as well. I think it would be a huge benefit to those of us that want the Constitution to prevail over, the schemes of oligarchs and banks and evil men.
And I think that's why it keeps coming up, because that is an Achilles heel in their schemes. And there are those who want to exploit that.
Yeah. And, the question of why was Ghislaine Maxwell prosecuted if they weren't doing child trafficking?
Right.
Why is she in jail then?
Exactly. Paula says U.S. controls UK database.
That's interesting. I don't really know in between the Five Eyes, who's really on top. I think it's still Britain, just because of the power of the Atlantic Alliance, the power of the connections, like when we talk about the Harrimans being financed through JP Morgan being directly connected to the British, I think it's the British Rothschilds. And so is it all not just tentacles that extend out of the city of London still? That's kind of what I think.
David says his son also acquired Paramount in a big deal he made a splash by signing South Park to $1.5 billion extension. Not sure who we're referring to here. I think that went back to something else.
Whose son are we talking about here?
Right, right. Corky says, Kurt case is like Butler and Vegas shooting, completely Keystone copped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's was it Catherine Herridge, the one that the economist from that has a pretty large presence on YouTube and other places, saying, at this stage they're laughing at us. They pull these assassinations, they never resolve them. They always drop hints, lots of hints where, so they get people talking about, what angle was the gun, or, how fast did this happen, or what happened? Why did they cover up the scene? Why have they renovated the scene where this happened, just like they renovate everything else, like they have the crime scene cleanup, and this pattern over and over again is exactly what Fletcher Prouty predicted back in the 70s when he said they always needed to be a lone nut. They always needed to be, controlled in such a way that whoever shoots is going to get away and never be found. And that's the way that they run these ops. But the American people are just still like mesmerized by television and believing what they're told, and that is, that, hey, we're working on it. We're Bondi's working on it. Don't worry, Kash Patel's on the case.
There you go. Brightmore says Palantir data goes to Israel.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Jason. Local orchard has bumper crop of Liberty apples. Once you've tasted Liberty, toiled lovingly there 20 years ago.
We've had a bit of an apple story this week ourselves.
Yes.
When I go up to Pennsylvania for my rehearsals for my opera, I drive up US 15 from Frederick up to Harrisburg, or to Camp Hill, where I work, where they do the rehearsal. But along US 15 is some of the most beautiful land. And right about halfway up, there's a place called Catoctin Mountain Orchards. And the first time I went by there, I got a whole bunch of peaches and brought them home. And you made me a peach pie. And now this
peach upside down cake.
Thank you. A peach upside down was great. And so this time I went by and I got a peck of Honeycrisp apples. And we've been eating those all week. And then now we've got an apple pie to work on. So I am with you completely, Jason, on the value of orchards. And I don't know what a Liberty apple tastes like, but these Honeycrisps are just right.
David added some detail here. He was talking about Larry Ellison's son. Sorry, Larry Ellison's son is a media tycoon controlling Paramount Studios that was once called Michigan Chrome and Bumper before the Chicago boys took over.
Michigan Chrome and Bumper became Paramount Studios?
I guess. Mobster says Britain has infiltrated U.S. political military intelligence.
Politics, military, yeah, absolutely.
U.S. politics. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we tell that story all the time. The British Security Coordination, BSC, in Rockefeller Plaza, along with the FBI.
David says Rupert Murdoch humiliated Prince of Wales and nothing bad happened. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, David, or which Prince of Wales, the current one or the former one?
The interesting part, I think, of what he's saying is that a spy, a connected guy like Murdoch, and with his power, financial power that he has, can humiliate royalty and get away with it. I don't know the details of it, but
Yeah, I don't
that,
either.
remember, there's a famous picture that goes around with one of the Rothschilds poking his finger into the chest of Prince Charles, who is now the king, but poking his finger in his chest like, I'm telling you what to do.
Well, Murdoch, was it Murdoch who published the private telephone conversations between Charles and Camilla that exposed his affair with Camilla and some really weird things that they were saying to each other back before he divorced Diana?
That must be what David's referring to, and of course I've forgotten it.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody intercepted their cell phone conversation and then sold it to the press, and that was a huge humiliation for Charles.
Uh-huh. So yeah, that's probably what he's talking about.
So Brightmore says current false flags psyop planners appear to leave sundry futile breadcrumbs for the conspiracy theorists to follow. That's a really good point. Divide, distract, conquer. Yeah. Because sometimes these conspiracy theories turn out to be true, but not always. And, those people who are willing to believe that reality is very different from what we've been told are also willing to follow breadcrumbs that might not lead anywhere.
And that's the mighty Wurlitzer coming out of the CIA, generating story after story after story. And that's the story of the JFK assassination, is that we have all of these great writers and investigative journalists going into every single little angle of it, but except for the fact that they're not seeing the forest for the trees. They're stuck in the trees. You got to look at motive, and you've got to look at power, and who had the motive to do it and who had the power to do it. And then forget about who pulled the trigger. Let's, who really benefits, and among the people that benefit, who could actually afford it, who could control the enough. All of the government agencies had to be controlled.
Or, as you have been pointing out a lot lately, who has the power to cover it up?
That's right. Yeah, that's the coup, and that's the coup we need to undo.
David says, never sleep on a cobbler for a fall desert.
Sounds like somebody might have fallen into the cobbler on on some occasion.
Midwestern advice. Thank you, David, for the Midwestern advice.
Okay, and look out for the prairie oysters as well.
Corky says, orchard country here. CNY. My son's best friend's family run a massive apple orchard.
Nice.
Hopefully you're getting some good apples. And then Corky says, my lens will always be alchemical. The big secrets drive the small ones. Just me. And David says, yes, exactly. His news also called hospital when Rupert Murdoch's news also called the hospital when Catherine had first baby. She divulged info and hung herself. Okay. I wonder what info she divulged.
I don't know who Catherine is.
William's wife.
Oh, William's wife. I am so tuned out to all this Royals stuff.
I see. Good for you. Brightmore. Erica Kirk apparently was so concerned with Jezebel witches casting spells against her and Charlie that she asked a priest to pray for her family. Okay.
Very interesting rabbit hole that I'm not jumping down. This Erica Kirk thing is very, very interesting for those that want to investigate, the whole reality of their marriage, the whole, we talked about the name Kirk last week, and, enough said. I mean, I'm not going to be the one that dives down into find out the reality behind Erica Kirk, but She is clearly running a continuation of the Turning Point um, project, and declares, a state of war. We are now mad. We're going to get you. Okay.
Oh, she has said that?
Yeah. She says, you have l- lit an inferno of people. Right? That's the wrong word, but because you killed Charlie. Now you're going to face the wrath of millions.
Interesting. David adds some detail to his post. Yes, when the potential Prince of Wales was born, an Aussie radio station pranked the hospital, and a nurse gave information which was secret, and she killed herself as a result.
I'm so sorry. I did not know that.
I do remember that now. I do remember there was a nurse who answered the phone and thought that it was somebody who was authorized and gave out information. Yeah. Yep.
Didn't know this whole story.
Yeah. So Corky says, we all conspire. House painting is my current conspiracy. I hope you have some good conspirators on that with you, Corky. House painting is a lot of work. Not sure what Brightmore means here, the night before Charlie's killing. Corky goes on to say, the word conspiracy is very neutral. Breathe together, plan. Interesting. Breathe together.
That's one of the things that Grok does is it uses the phrase conspiracy theory all the time. Like if you ask anything about Lyndon LaRouche, the first word you're going to see is conspiracy theory. You ask it, anything about stuff that we investigate here, and it'll say, oh, conspiracy theorists say blah 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 blah. So how do you know that those people are conspiracy theorists? You're just throwing that CIA term on this as a way of dissuading people from looking deeper. And that's another reason I just don't trust Grok.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's just Grok, though. Anytime anybody wants to discredit somebody, they're going to say, oh, well, that's a conspiracy theory, or he's a conspiracy theorist, because that immediately somehow or another implies that, oh, no, it's not true. It's a because conspiracy theory has become synonymous with false.
Right.
And so you just call somebody a conspiracy theorist, or say this is a conspiracy theory, and you're discrediting them. That has become a wonderful tool of those who want to hide the truth.
Well, that's why I think it's important to note that Grok does it, because Grok is being sought, by millions and millions of people every day for information. And the fact that it was, pitching itself as an alternative that was going to tell the truth, well, no, it's not.
Right. Don't understand this, mobster. I've researched both sides of the family. It's a very strange thing.
I think he's talking about the Kirk family.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Well, feel free to tell us more if you like.
Imagine that says it's not just Grok, it's Google AI as well. It's the algorithms programmed in. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It gives you an opinion along with the information, like I could say, like, in what year was Lyndon LaRouche born? And it would say, conspiracy theorist Lyndon LaRouche was born, blah, blah, blah.
Well, but then again, so do the media and all of the reporters.
That's
they
right.
Throw in all of these adjectives that they pretend to be neutral. But I love how NPR throughout the well, they still might do it. I don't know. I stopped listening to NPR, but I noticed it throughout the first Trump administration. NPR would always say things like, and even afterwards during the Biden administration, if they're talking about Trump, they would always say that Trump incorrectly claimed blah, 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 blah. but they never explained how it is they can prove or know for sure that it was incorrect. But Trump incorrectly claimed that blah,
Oh,
blah,
yeah.
blah. And it was constant that Trump incorrectly claimed this and that and the other. Anything Trump said, they would modify it by saying it was incorrect. I mean, I'm exaggerating when I say that, but still, the media do that all the time.
That's why they lost me, man.
Yep.
NPR is nowhere near my universe.
David says, vast right-wing conspiracy and drag a $5 bill through a trailer park. Bimbo eruptions was colorful official White House defense tactics. I remember from my high school days. Yeah. Vast right-wing conspiracy.
Yeah.
I believe that it was Hillary Clinton who made that phrase popular.
A vast right-wing conspiracy. And it's so interesting that the liberals just don't see that there's also a vast left-wing conspiracy.
Isn't that amazing?
They think that they're immune, from conspiracies.
The liberals of the 60s and 70s wouldn't recognize the liberals of today. In fact, the liberals of the 60s and 70s would be horrified by the liberals of today.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to war. Here we are seeing all these liberals, fine, Russia's the enemy. Let's support Zelensky, let's put our yellow and blue flags on our icons. And, we've even got one up the street, we stand with Ukraine.
Yeah, well, let's go to war. These folks are just dying to go to war.
They are. And these are the same people that I marched against war with 50 years ago.
That's right. Mobster says moderate Democrats of 30 years ago are now labeled far right. Okay. Imagine that. Says media pushing social engineering.
Yeah. And digital currencies, if we ever really go to digital currency, that's the end.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Corky says stipulated reality will always require review and adjustments. Okay. Newton, Einstein. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the truth is never objective. It requires review and adjustments.
Right. And you have to know your Riemann spaces, like you and I, we operate on Newtonian physics, right? But that's not the real physics. The real physics is Einstein and the atomic level. And then you have to understand the idea of there being spaces within spaces within spaces that this mathematician named Riemann, Riemann, spells out. And to me, and that's one of the places where LaRouche goes, because he was a mathematician. And that's where they lose me. I think okay, I'll agree that there's a lot of fine tuning to be done around the edges, but let's get back to basic, push and shove, because I think that's what the real world is made of. Is the world that we live in is about, momentum and pushing and power and things like that.
And change. Corky says that was Hillary's best ever. We all, we all plan. Twisting language is a tell. It is. Good point.
People who study this stuff talk about neuro-linguistic programming as something that is used by the deep state planners, the people in the cubicles at Rand Corporation. They figure a way to twist a word. A perfect example is vaccine. When we grew up, a vaccine was to prevent you from getting the disease. Period. End of story. But then when COVID comes along, somebody went in and changed the definition to say a vaccine is anything that lessens the effect of a virus, or so that no longer are we thinking of a vaccine as automatically something, yeah, well, it's going to prevent me from getting chickenpox, or it's going to prevent me from getting typhus. Well, yeah, I'll take that because it says right on it, it's going to prevent. But vaccines suddenly don't have to prevent anything. They just have to be kind of, make things a little better. And so, yeah, we buy them all. But most people are still thinking that vaccines are supposed to prevent these things. Although by now, I guess everybody's accepted the idea that, well, gosh, this virus is just keeps changing and it's going to keep getting worse. And so I'll just have to keep on taking the new vaccine to meet the new variant. God, it's unbelievable how deep this language programming is.
And I think it has become more and more weaponized.
Yeah.
Because we are now in an era where we come up with phrases that have new meanings, that we suddenly, and then if we all start using it.
Ignorance is strength. War is peace, and 2 + 2 = 5. That's where it's headed.
Brightmore says, yet a rising number of Americans, especially the young, have become skeptical of media and government announcements. How many were talking about false flags, psyops, the deep state 20 years ago?
Good point.
Yep, very good point. David says, handsome Dan the Bulldog mascot is the best part of Yale. Well, any dog is the best part of anything. I think that our Toto is the best part of us.
But look out for those Yaleys. They'll bite you in the ass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Imagine that. Says executive order issued by U.S. President George W. Bush on September 23, 2001, as a response to the attacks on September 11th. It has been renewed every year since. And what was that executive order? Is that what you're doing? Are you looking that up?
No, I'm not looking it up. I'm looking at the chat.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because, I don't know what that executive order was other than, the Patriot Act.
Well, we're running out of time, so
I know.
We'll have to look it up later. It's the state of emergency. That's what it is.
I see. Oh, the state of emergency.
So then they this is what Trump gets his power from. Is we're still in this state of emergency.
Got it.
Since 9/11. That's right. Emergency.
Everyone, emergency, everyone to get from street. Oh. Everyone to get from street.
The Russians are coming, folks.
The Russians are coming. There you go.
Alan Arkin was right. They're invading in submarines. They're going to land on the beach out at Ocean City, Maryland this afternoon. So everybody get ready. Say that again. That was so good.
Emergency, everyone to get from street.
All right, folks. Emergency. We're going to get off of the air because we've spent our lovely hour with you once again.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us and for allowing us to be a little silly sometimes.
Yes, Brightmore, since November 22nd, 1963. So undo the coup, folks. That's what we'll be working on once again on Monday morning here at McDuff Lives. Thank you, Marcia Keith. Bye-bye now.